Hello everyone, I am JVN Dr. Mohammad Meraj Alam, Assistant Professor of Economics, JAYOTI VIDYAPEETH Women's University, Jaipur. In this session of video, I will discuss about the component of economic reform, which is the part of Indian economy which taught a paper which taught in a second semester of BA B.Ed program. Uh, there are uh, 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 there are mainly three components of economic reform. I have discussed already in a length about the crisis which led to the economic reform and what is the rationale of the economic reform in India. In this section of video, I will discuss about the component of economic reform. As we already I told you that there are three important component of economic reform. Number one is liberalization, second is privatization, and number three is globalization. Globalization is the last one because liberalization leads to privatization, privatization leads to the globalization, right? All these three components uh, are very important for any economic reform of the in any country of the world. We'll discuss one by one. Let's start first the liberalization, right? What is liberalization? I will discuss about in this video or in the coming video or next video. As pointed out in the beginning, rules and laws which are aimed at regulating the economic activities become major hindrance in a growth and development. In the previous video, I have discussed how rules and regulations, official red tapeism, bureaucratic procedure were hindrance in the development of economic activities in India before 1991. There were overstaffing, or you may can say there were the official red tapeism, bureaucratic procedure were very difficult to proceed anything in a rightful manner, right? Liberalization was introduced to put an end to these restrictions and open up various sectors of the economy. Right before 1991, most of the sectors of the Indian economy were specialized and controlled and regulated only through the public sector. Private players were not allowed to enter in a particular type of industry, right? If anyone want, even if anyone want to invest, shows the courage to invest, they have to follow serious rules and regulations which were meant for the harassment, not for the encouragement of the any economic activity in the country. Liberalization introduced and put an end to all these such type of restriction which were hindrance, which were create hindrance to do the economic activities in the rightful manner. Though a few liberalization measures were introduced in 1980s in the area of industrial licensing, export-import policy, technology upgradation, fiscal policy, and foreign investment reforms, right? Reforms initiated in 1991 were more comprehensive. Before economic reform, which was take place in the 1991, there were few relaxations in the rules and the regulations were introduced in the 1980s. Because in the 1980s there were some industries and the industrial related policy were introduced uh, in India for the upgradation of technology, import export policy, fiscal and foreign investment. They have to change in the rules and in regulation in 19, but it was very little which could not help much to the industrial sector or economy, Indian economy in the 1980s. But it was only work after when other parts of the economy also opened up after the economic reforms in 1991, right? Uh, Some important areas such as industrial sector, financial sector, tax reform, foreign exchange markets, and trade and investment sector, which received greater attention in and after the 1991. Okay, let's discuss one by one. Deregulation of industrial sector. In India, regulatory mechanisms were enforced in various ways, right? Industrial licensing, under which every entrepreneur had to get permission from government official to start a firm, close a firm, or decide to amount of goods that could be produced. Okay, before starting any industrial unit, you have to procure the license. You have to inform the production method of production and techniques, which type of technique of production you are using, and how much amount you have to produce. These types of information were sought by the government official on time to time. Even if you want to close the firm, you have to inform the government, right? Private sector was not allowed in many industries, as I told you earlier. Some goods could be produced only in small scale industries, and controls on price fixation and the distribution of selected industrial product, right? Therefore, the reform policies introduced in and after 1991 removed many of these restrictions. Industrial licensing was abolished for almost all but product categories: alcohol, cigarettes, hazardous chemicals, industrial explosive, electronics, aerospace, and drugs and pharmaceuticals. The only the only industries which are now reserved for the public sector are defense equipment, atomic energy generation, and transport, railway transports. Many goods produced by small scale industries have now been deserved, right? In many industries, the market has been allowed to determine the prices. Financial sector reforms. Number two is the financial sector reforms. Financial sector includes financial institutions such as commercial bank, investment banks, stock exchange operation, and foreign exchange market. The financial sector in India is regulated by Reserve Bank of India (RBI). You may be aware that all the banks and other financial institutions in India are regulated through various norms and regulation of the RBI. The RBI decides the amount of money that the bank can keep with themselves, fixes interest rates, nature of lending to various sectors, etc. One of the major aims of financial sector reforms is to reduce the role of RBI from regulator to facilitator of financial sector. This means that the financial sector may be allowed to take decision on many matters without consulting the RBI. The reform policies led to the establishment of private sector banks, Indian as well as foreign. Foreign investment limit in banks was raised to around 50%. Those banks which fulfill certain conditions have been given freedom to set up new branches without the approval of the RBI and rationalize their existing branch networks. Though banks have been given permission to generate resources from India and abroad, certain managerial aspects have been retained with the RBI to safeguard the interest of the account holders and the nations. Foreign institutional investors such as merchant bankers, mutual funds, and pension funds are now allowed to invest in Indian financial market. Tax reforms. Tax reforms are concerned with the reforms in government in taxation and public expenditure policies, which are collectively known as fiscal policy. There are two types of taxes: direct and indirect taxes. Direct taxes consist of taxes on income of the of individuals as well as profits of business enterprises. Since 1991, there has been a continuous reduction in taxes on individual incomes, as it was felt that high rates of income tax were an important reason for tax evasion. It is now widely accepted that moderate rates of income tax encourages saving and voluntary disclosure of income. The rate of corporation tax, which was very high earlier, has been gradually reduced. Efforts have also been made to reform the indirect taxes levied on commodities in order to facilitate the establishment of goods and commodities. Uh, Another component of reform in this area is simplification in order to encourage better compliance on the part of taxpayers' money. Procedures have been simplified and the rates also substantially lowered. Foreign exchange reforms. The first important reform in the external sector was made in the foreign exchange market in 1991 as an immediate measure to resolve the balance of payment crisis. The rupee was devalued against foreign currencies. This led to an increase in the inflow of foreign exchange. It also set the tone to free the determination of rupee value in the foreign exchange market from government control. Now, more often than not, more often than not, market determines exchange rates based on the demand and supply of the foreign exchange. Trade and investment policy reforms. Liberalization of trade and investment regime was initiated to increase international competitiveness of industrial production and also foreign investment and technology into the economy. The aim was also to promote the efficiency of the local industries and the adaptation of moderate technologies. In order to protect domestic industries, India was following a regime of quantitative restrictions on imports. I think this is sufficient in this video. Rest part of this topic we'll discuss in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video.